All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Better late than never. We had a hacking incident of some kind. I'm not sure really what happened, actually. But the people who are closest to my heart on this show were unable to join the show. It was pretty crazy.
What?
I was panicked, and I use that word advisedly, and I use the word advisedly because it is a ding word. I was panicked this morning when I got word that both Albert and Kim had succumbed in some kind of cyberspace bizarro attack. I don't know who to blame. I was thinking, was it something from the North Koreans? Something from the Russians? What happened that took my key people out?
I blame you.
I don't know what it was, but it is good to sort of have Kim back. She's joining us on some webcam setup that she has there. I don't want to know if you have an OnlyFans site, Kim. It's your own business, but I appreciate you dedicating it to our show for a couple of minutes because we've got a big show today. I saw in the chat, which I monitor as I am able, that the Rothman absence is something that has a couple of people downcast. They were looking forward to Rothman. Well, let me tell you something about Rothman being gone. Don't look at it as I blame Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
Tony's on board. He's saving the universe right now. How dare you smear my Tony? He is the only thing between us and darkness. The absence of Rothman is what I was saying. If I could please return to what I was saying.
Do you know
ladies
who
and
I
gentlemen,
am? I'm kind of a big deal.
Don't appreciate being interrupted. The absence of Rothman, you shouldn't look at as an absence that is pure negative. I don't know if you've heard this phrase before, but as one door closes, another door opens. That's right. And so in that spirit,
who is having that conversation?
I have Elex Michaelson today in place of Rothman. Yeah, you're damn straight. A lot of people would say it's an upgrade. Okay, Rothman? So you better get back to your regular position, Rothman, because one more week away, John, and to be perfectly honest, you could be replaced.
Why are you yelling?
I'm just trying to make the point that no one, including John Rothman, is irreplaceable on this show.
Seriously, what the
And if he thinks we can't replace him with somebody else who'll come here and work for free, he is absolutely mistaken. Bottom of the hour, Elex Michaelson joins. We'll talk about the new slimmed down Ozempic type indictment of Donald Trump. Yeah, they trimmed down. They've lost all of the stuff that the Supreme Court has ruled that Donald Trump was protected to do by his executive immunity. Of course, Donald Trump's hand-picked, bought and paid for Supreme Court did hand down a hand-picked, bought and paid for decision that gave him immunity in many cases. That is to say, things he does in office, in many cases, fall into the category of an official act as president. And as a result, again, as a result of this Supreme Court decision, which no one anticipated because it's so completely absurd and designed to protect one man, as a result of that decision, essentially, Jack Smith, the special counsel, had to go retool and then slim down the indictment that was presented in front of a new grand jury, and a new grand jury, having heard those specifics, re-indicted. Said, yeah, what we're seeing in this presentation justifies indicting Donald Trump. And so he's back with this indictment. Re-indicted, and it feels so good. Kim said that to me last night. Didn't you? You really did.
I did.
You said, re-indicted, and it feels so good.
Yeah.
And I thought it was very clever, actually. Yeah. It's a play on that Peaches and Herb song.
I thought it was Captain and Tennille, but I guess it was Peaches and Herb.
Re-indicted, and it feels so good. Albert, you can check, I believe, and I'll give everyone a little trivia, then I'll get right into the meat of the politics and what's going on. But Albert, you can Google this.
Google it.
I believe that in Peaches and Herb, Herb was like the regular guy who stayed with Peaches and Herb the whole time. But Peaches, there were multiple Peaches, I think. That's my recollection about Peaches and Herb, who did Reunited. They did Shake Your Groove thing, and they did Reunited.
This is Casey Kasem in Hollywood.
Thank you. It's Casey, and I want to tell you, I believe that the male artist Herb was the regular artist, but they replaced Peaches with multiple female artists. Is that right, Albert?
I think you're correct. This is just a quick Wikipedia search, and I've seen
This is Casey Kasem in Hollywood.
Yeah,
with Marlene Mack,
yeah.
Francine, and Linda Green. I think those were
Oh, I didn't need the names, Albert. I simply needed you to reinforce the fact that I was right.
You are correct.
Yes, thank you. That's all I wanted to, yeah. So many Peaches, only one Herb, but re-indicted, and it feels so good. Yeah. This is related to January 6th and the overthrow of the election, and it's why I feel this indictment is far more important than, let's say, the indictment for transactions related to paying off Stormy Daniels, etc. And as you're well aware, and viewers to this channel know, I believe the document case was the slam dunk case that was completely absent of any sort of rational explanation as to why you would jack all those top secret documents, many of them containing military secrets, and the fact that that bought and paid for and handpicked judge was able to park that case is a true perversion of the system. That said, that case may live again as well, but the fact that Trump's been able to dodge it so far, truly amazing. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
all right, we have a lot to get to today. As I say, bottom of the hour is Elex Michaelson. We have people joining from different places. Again, thanks for Tony's presence today and kind of keeping things on track.
Thanks, Tony.
And Albert and Kim are both here.
Kim, how are you?
Quite amazing.
Albert, thank
we have
you.
a full car. We can't pick up any hitchhikers. This car is full. Let's start with a little something in the world of Trump. We'll do it in a segment we call Chunk of Trump.
Open wide. Ready? Here comes your chunk of Trump.
It's my favorite food.
With your first bite, here's Mark Thompson.
I have a feeling it's going to be beautiful.
Well, as mentioned, the new indictment against Donald Trump in the January 6th and the election subversion case, the new indictment is on. The facts presented to a new jury, grand jury, that had to evaluate these facts and say, yeah, based on these facts presented to us, we believe an indictment is appropriate. Those facts and that decision has been made. This is a slimmed down indictment, 36 pages instead of the original 45 pages, but more important than the page count is the fact that all four counts against Trump related to, as I say, the January 6th and the election subversion case, all four counts still stand. But the Supreme Court justices, because of their decision to protect Donald Trump, the former president, clearly it was a decision associated with immunity that was directed right at Donald Trump to offer that protection to him. The refashioned allegations have to stay clear of any sort of presidential interaction, for example, with the Justice Department. So when President Trump at that time contacted the Justice Department and was trying to get them to announce that there were inconsistencies with the election, trying to get them to suggest to the American public publicly that there was going to be a full investigation into the election because there were irregularities. Those, and by the way, that was, again, he said, you don't actually have to do it. I just need the announcement. So that would be illegal, except for the fact that Donald Trump is now protected because that interaction between the Justice Department and the chief executive would be a presidential act. So that, for example, was excised from this entire indictment. So let's see the way it's being played on morning television. This is the way the Today Show had this going down.
Donald Trump facing a renewed legal battle this morning, with special counsel Jack Smith filing a superseding indictment against the former president over his alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election. While the original charges remain, Smith narrowed and revised his allegations against the former president, removing references to anything that might be considered official acts during his time in office. Online, Mr. Trump calling it the persecution of a political opponent. He has already pleaded not guilty to all of the charges. The new indictment comes on the heels of last month's bombshell ruling by the Supreme Court that found presidents enjoy broad immunity for official acts.
I'm immune from all of the stuff that they charged me with.
Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson among those who dissented, discussing the ruling in a new interview with CBS News.
I was concerned about a system that appeared to provide immunity for one individual under one set of circumstances.
The new indictment accuses Mr. Trump of using his campaign to spread lies that he knew were false, to create an intense national atmosphere of mistrust and anger. That includes a now infamous call Mr. Trump made to Georgia's Secretary of State after losing the state to Joe Biden.
I just want to find 11,780 votes.
On certifying the election results, the special counsel refers to former Vice President Pence as acting in his role as president of the Senate, writing Mr. Trump had, quote, no official responsibilities, but did have a personal interest, and alleging he attempted to use a crowd of supporters on January 6th to pressure the vice president to fraudulently alter the election results.
We fight like hell, and if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
Also this morning, NBC News has reviewed newly released video shot by Nancy Pelosi's daughter in the hours after the January 6th attack that HBO recently turned over to Congress. The House Speaker blasting Mr. Trump.
We take an oath to protect our country from all enemies, foreign and domestic. There is a domestic enemy in the White House.
That newly released Pelosi video also contains footage of the speaker wondering loud why the National Guard wasn't at the Capitol before the attack. Which
yeah, that's pretty powerful. Thank you for that, Tony. I wanted you to hear essentially some of what I just reviewed, but also with a couple of add-ons. And you can see that as far as Jack Smith, who's the special counsel on this, is concerned, this case is still very much alive, and he's reanimated it in this way. Again, a slimmed-down indictment. What was the second thing I had for you, Tony? Was it legal analysis? Yeah. Play a little bit of this. If there's the legal analysis I want. I send poor Tony and Albert, I send them all this stuff, and sometimes there's just such a blizzard of it that it's tough to keep track of. If this doesn't have the legal analysis I want, we'll bail on it. But go ahead, share a little bit of this if you would.
Charges against him.
Overnight, he called it election interference. He called it a direct attack on democracy. But I think more importantly for our conversation, Katie, just in the last 2 hours, he has posted a flurry of vengeful.
Oh, this is what I wanted you to see. This is an extraordinary thing that he's made these posts. Look at these posts. And those who are listening, if I need to, I'll kind of fill you in on what you're seeing on screen. But this is an extraordinary thing that a former president of the United States, and I understand that the public discourse, the way we talk, has completely been corrupted and sullied, I'd suggest, by the modern age, and Trump has turned mudslinging sort of into the coin of the realm. That said, this is amazing to me that a former president could post this kind of stuff on his social media. Go ahead, Tony.
Memes that I think we have a couple of them that we can pull up here, I think that are very quite explicit. You have one, AI images of his perceived enemies. You see Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, Kamala Harris, Nancy Pelosi, Hillary Clinton, Fauci, Bill Gates in orange jumpsuits with the text, how to actually fix the system. You have another one where you see Jack Smith. You see, I think actually, I'm going to call up the one that we are looking at right now. You see the words indict, sedition, and lock them up from the January 6th Select Committee. And then we've got another one. You see there Jack Smith with the text, quote, he should be prosecuted for election interference and prosecutorial misconduct. A fourth one that I want people to see. You have President Obama with the text that calls for, quote, public military tribunals of Obama and others. There's a flurry of others. There's others that are QAnon themed. This is Donald Trump just in the last 2 hours.
We'd have to do digging. It doesn't seem like these are posted by real people. Just the handles with the emojis on them and the quality of these AI images. You wonder if it's an individual somewhere that's actually posting this and creating this stuff all on their own, or if it's done by a bot or some other agency that wants to influence things. But put that aside.
Right. That doesn't matter. He posted them on his social media.
Images of his opponents,
exactly.
Political opponents in prison, and not just political opponents, big business leaders like Bill Gates.
And Donald Trump says a lot. He posts a lot on this Truth Social account. Last month, he called for public military tribunals of Liz Cheney here. So on one hand, this isn't new, but we're 2 months out from an election. And this, for anybody to suggest that retribution is not on Donald Trump's mind, go to his social media account, because this is where he has direct control over what he can post and repost. And when I talk about 2 months out, Donald Trump is laying the groundwork, Katie, claiming election interference, saying that Google is already having election interference. The superseding indictment yesterday from Jack Smith is election interference. The gag order in the upcoming sentencing in Lower Manhattan here from Judge Merchan is election interference. He's calling the fake AI images that he claimed Kamala Harris posted of her crowds, which of course were not fake. He said that those were election interference and that she should be disqualified. Donald Trump is laying the foundation for claiming that the 2024 election was stolen. And while the focus could very well be on the indictment that Jack Smith has brought before him for election interference of the last case, Donald Trump clearly is looking towards.
It's not just those around him that are saying that his opponent should be prosecuted. It's not just Steve Bannon coming out and ranting about it on a podcast. This is Donald Trump reposting things. It's him saying it with his own words, flirting with the possibility. I keep thinking back to something that David Frum wrote months ago before there was any debate scheduled between anybody, before the Biden and Trump debate, the idea that there would be two candidates on stage and they would be treated as both legitimate and both equal. They'd be talking about economics and food prices, while one of those candidates tried to overturn an election, denied that there was a free and fair election, and still continues to do so. The root level discomfort with equating that or making it on the same level as talking about,
I get it. More to the point, although to the same point, it is, how can these candidates be talked about in the same way? How can political life be so corrupted by this poisonous sort of vengeful posting of things that do whip up stochastic terrorism, one-off stuff, or I'm talking about domestic terrorism when I say that, or just as I say, corrupt the public discourse to the point that this ugliness starts to be the way that we conduct politics in America. This is way off any kind of discussion of the merits of the case or the merits of any sort of political philosophy. This goes into pure vengeance. And I just can't believe that we have, I hate to be this guy, and I don't mean to be where I'm finger wagging. I can't believe society has degenerated to the point, but it is amazing. So, but this is, as I say, this indictment is the January 6th indictment, the latest, the re-indictment, if you want to think of it that way, the slimmed down indictment, is perhaps the most relevant to America as an idea, elections as something that have some sanctity, because January 6th, associated activities, connections with those who are working to undermine the election, those indictment-related facts, I think, do cut through in ways that some of these other cases do not. Talk more about that a bit with Elex Michaelson when he joins in just a few minutes. The other thing going on in Trump land is apparently an altercation that went on during what was clearly a naked photo op. When I say naked photo op, you know what I mean. No one was naked at the Arlington National Cemetery.
What?
That would have been an even bigger incident, frankly. That's the one way they could have made this incident even more controversial than it is. But, you know, the idea is that you can go to the Arlington National Cemetery. I grew up in Washington, and we used to go all the time. You know, frequently, probably more frequently than many other Americans, and there's certain rules and there's certain reverence that you have to have around Arlington National Cemetery, where so many of those who've died and who have some kind of connection to the military are buried. And the reality is you're allowed to take pictures, but you know you have to take pictures in certain areas only, and you're not allowed to take pictures in this particular area. Trump was in an area where there were recent, I believe, let me get this straight. The incident took place during Donald Trump's visit to Arlington National Cemetery. It was in a place called Section 60, which is the final resting place. This is what I want to get straight for many U.S. service members who were killed in recent conflicts. So the guidance was issued to the Trump people and his campaign people. Again, this is sort of a campaign stop, and I'm being polite when I say sort of. And the guidance was issued to them before the memorial event, and again, once they were on site, because of legal restrictions on campaign-related activities there. Well, Trump had been invited to this memorial event to mark the deaths of 13 U.S. service members by some of the grieving families. And it was abundantly clear that in Section 60, no photos and no video was to be taken. Well, apparently there was an attempt to take pictures. There was an attempt to shoot videos in Section 60, and cemetery staff has said that they asked for this to stop, and they got into a back and forth with the Trump people, with his crew. Now, the Trump campaign communications director said, hey, there was no physical altercation, even though that's what's being reported. But the back and forth is a bad look if it gets out. I mean, again, many pictures are taken at Arlington Cemetery, but this was an area that has a sacrosanct aspect to it. And apparently, the Trump people were insistent that photos be taken, and there was quite the back and forth. The statement came. We have Alex.
Yes, he's standing by.
Okay, I'll get to him in a second. The Trump campaign says they have footage that sort of shows that there was no physical altercation, but they haven't released that footage. They also shared a statement from 5 relatives of slain U.S. service members. These are the Trump people sharing this, saying that they got permission for Trump's official photographer and videographer to join the cemetery and to capture the moments there graveside. So, Sandy says Trump is incapable of showing respect or bearing even the slightest resemblance of a decent human being. Well, there is that. For now, that's your chunk of Trump.
That's it for this edition.
Well, I really enjoyed it.
But make sure to join us again next time
I think you might want to listen. There's nothing wrong with listening.
for another chunk of Trump.
Well,
The Mark Thompson Show.
I will get to show stuff that I've got to update you on. We've got the meetup going on tomorrow night at the same time as the Harris-Walz sit-down. At least it'll overlap by about a half hour, I think. And so what I do want to fill you in on, those who are coming to the meetup's sold out, but we'll watch it together. I think Tony's going to set that up. Yeah, 2 glorious hours of our end of summer Zoom meetup. But Tony, we are sold out of this event, sadly. We can't accommodate anybody more. But Tony, you are arranging for us to be able to watch the interview.
I have an experiment. It seems like it works. So we'll see.
All right. That's
Never
all
been
we need.
anything like this.
All right. I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks, Tony.
All right. Without any further delay, although we have delayed substantially already, and we do enjoy delaying on this show. So
The Mark Thompson Show.
This guy has been busy. In fact, I wanted to tap him to be on the show last week, but then I thought, oh my God, he's, conventioning. He's doing it from one convention to another. His stuff on conventions, his reporting on politics is really so terrific. It's a bit different than you'll see in a lot of these standard issue network pieces. He'll give you a feel for the event. He also has access to all the top people and inside people that you'll find in traditional networks. So I think you get everything you get from legacy media with Alex's stuff in a different way with some add-ons as well. Anyway, he is the anchor at Fox 11 in Los Angeles. He also does, of course, the syndicated show The Issue Is, all about California politics and beyond. Elex Michaelson, everybody.
Hey, Mark. Good to see you.
Oh, good to see you, sir. Really loved your stuff from the conventions. They were 2 very different conventions, weren't they, Elex Michaelson?
Very, very different experiences. The Republican one, frankly, was better organized. Logistically, it was easier to get around and a bit better set up. The Democratic one, though, was a bit more fun.
Yeah, and I felt like the moments that lingered might have been more associated with the Democrats than the Republicans. Again, not trying to be partisan, I'm just in just terms of rock star moments,
Well, it's just very different. You think about the 2 parties. Donald Trump is running as a one-man show, and the Democrats are running as an ensemble play. So you think about the fact, and it really is remarkable, we don't really talk about it, that there is not a single living Republican past member of the ticket who is endorsing Donald Trump. You think about George Bush and Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan and Mike Pence, who ran on the ticket with him last time. None of them are endorsing him. So none of them are there. So the level of speaker that you see on the different nights, I mean, the Democrats with Joe Biden and Barack Obama and Michelle Obama and Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, plus their own people, you just don't have that same level at the Republican National Convention. You have other folks like Kid Rock and Hulk Hogan, but they haven't necessarily, had years of government service.
I think you're on to something else as well, which is that some of those to whom you've referred have actually served in Donald Trump's administration, are now coming out and saying in full-page ads and other kinds of media appearances, I wouldn't have anything to do with this guy. He should be nowhere near the White House, and I'm actually voting against him.
Not only some, I mean, think about this. And I don't know why, nobody seems to care about this. But to me, I would think it would be something that people should care about. Donald Trump, these are people that he picked after saying, I only hire the best people. This is the guy who's all about hiring and firing. His vice president, multiple secretaries of state, multiple secretaries of defense, multiple national security advisors, multiple chiefs of staff, who have all worked with him at the highest level in the room, all say he should not be president. These are the guys that he picked. And they say he shouldn't be president. You don't see almost any of them coming out and endorsing him. And yet that fact doesn't seem to really matter to the Republicans at the convention. And even, frankly, isn't really talked about that much with swing state voters.
Speaking of things that won't matter, the re-indictment, I believe, has already been baked into all the numbers as well. I'm sure you're doing something on your show, The Issue Is, about this, at least a reference of some kind. But when you do the political calculus on it, it just really probably won't matter.
Especially the fact that we're not going to see any sort of trial or conviction on that fact before the election. It'll be interesting, though, that the New York case where he was convicted, we expect to see sentencing on that in a couple of weeks. And That is it'll be interesting to see what happens there, where there's actually a resolution. But these issues that, that the January 6th stuff is going to go one of two ways. Either one, he's going to get elected president again, and then he's going to make it go away. Or two, he doesn't get elected president again, and then people don't care as much. I mean, look at how much interest there is right now in the Hunter Biden trials compared to,
thank you,
a few months ago. All of a sudden, it's less interesting. There's an argument that the best thing that could be done for the country, which of course is why it would never happen, is that Donald Trump agrees to just go away, and the criminal cases against him go away too. Basically, sort of the Richard Nixon thing. Like,
right, that you meant that a deal is struck, essentially.
You're out, your whole brand is out, but we're not prosecuting you, and you're just out of our consciousness. There's an argument that would be the best thing for the country, best thing for the Republican Party, and the best thing for the Democratic Party, which is why it's never going to happen.
Well, and here's the other thing that isn't spoken of, that in the back rooms of the Republican Party, they'd love to see that happen, even though they've surrendered their party to this man.
A lot of folks would, but then there's, a lot of folks that really feel that way are no longer in those back rooms.
Sure.
That convention, we talked about it as a one-man show, and if you look at it, usually the nominee only comes the last night, or maybe they come one other night. Donald Trump came out every single night at the convention, and the biggest moment of every night was not any guest speaker. It was when Donald Trump walked out. That party is incredibly loyal to him. He has built it out. The people that are left love him in a way that is hard for, I think, a lot of Democrats to understand, and especially at that moment of the convention. Right after he had been shot, when he was running against Joe Biden, the amount of unity and the amount of just adoration for him, and the amount of people that talked about him not only as a political leader, but almost like a religious leader, feeling that God had spared his life in that miraculous moment for him not getting killed, as for him to be a vessel, not only for the Republicans, but a vessel for Jesus. To make the country better, was not an insignificant number of people that not only said that on the floor, but also said it in speeches. We heard that as a recurring theme, this idea that Trump is a sort of prophet, that God has bestowed upon him certain powers to lead our country.
Well, I have two questions, and one of them follows that, because Trump has mentioned that specifically now in recent interviews. To me, and I'm saying this, not you, but I think Trump is throwing a lot of stuff against the wall to see what sticks. And now the religious thing is just one more thing he's throwing. And he had suggested that God believes that he has a purpose, quote, to save America and maybe the world. And that is why he survived last month's assassination attempt. He pinned some of the blame for the shooting, as you know, on President Biden, and he's folded in Kamala Harris because you're running against Kamala Harris. And he was sticking with this religious theme by claiming that he would win in California if Jesus were in charge of voting in the state.
Counting voting. Counting voting. I think
oh, is that right? I see. All right.
Jesus would be the Secretary of State against running the elections. His implication with that was that the elections are not run above board, and Jesus is so ethical that if you had an honest broker running the elections, he would win, because when he travels the state, he sees so many different Trump signs, and he thinks that a lot more people are with him than...
I see, sure. Well, I mean, he's got, to be fair, Jesus is more ethical. I mean, I got to say...
This is a word from the Lord, and he's not happy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, more ethical than who, but he's supposed to be top of the ethical pyramid. Right. But the other thing I wanted to get to, so that's the religious side, so he's throwing that against the wall. I really want to get your thoughts on a couple of Kamala Harris spots that have just dropped, and I'm going to show them in a second. But I wanted to I hadn't planned to ask you about this, but I'm going to now. The 30,000-foot view of the Trump cultish, as you suggested, almost religious fervor that's there. I don't think it goes away. MAGA land, MAGA, forever. I don't think it goes away with Donald Trump. I think it is now... if he loses, will really kind of road test this theory. I feel it's sort of a generational thing. I think it's going to take a long time to purge, if the country will ever be truly purged of it, or even just to dilute the kind of fervor that there is on the MAGA side of things.
I don't know if we know. I think that what we saw and have seen in Kamala Harris's dramatic rise, where she's basically said very little, is this extraordinary hunger in this country for the next president of the United States not to be Joe Biden and not to be Donald Trump. I think there are a huge percentage of people that are exhausted with not only politics, but the tone of our politics that Trumpism represents. And it's very interesting that so many of the speakers, including the Obamas and others, when talking about Kamala Harris, almost viewed her as an extension and successor to Barack Obama and not to Joe Biden, because they tie, and you heard this continuously talking to people in on the stage, Joe Biden's last 4 years as a continuation of Trumpism, that Donald Trump never went away. The entire time that Joe Biden has been president, he's been omnipresent. You think about the beginning of his term, he was impeached a couple weeks later. He went on trial, all the indictments, he's always been chirping. He's kind of always been right there for Joe Biden. There was a moment where it seemed like he would be at Mar-a-Lago in exile. Then Kevin McCarthy goes there, the party embraces him. He gets indicted. His poll numbers go up. He runs for president. He's always been there. And this sort of feeling that way of politics, that there is this exhaustion with it and a wanting to move to something else, whether it be going back to the Obama era or sort of a fresher, newer version of that. And that's where a lot of the hope is with Kamala Harris. And I don't think that's just Democratic partisans. We have seen through election after election that a lot of the most Trumpy candidates that he has endorsed that don't have the name Donald Trump have consistently lost races that Republicans should be winning. So some of that indicates the fact that maybe there is a hunger among the country to move on from some of this Trumpism and the way that politics is. Look, there's no doubt that there's 40% of the country that is totally with him, but you can't win elections with that. You need more than that. And if he loses, is he ready to give up? Is he going to run again? Part of the brilliance from a sort of evil genius perspective of the fact that he never concedes that he loses is that it stops the party from having a reflection of why did we lose when they don't believe that they lost. Right? So you can't analyze what are we doing wrong if you think that you won. And that puts the onus on the Democrats did wrong, not us. But big picture, that's very bad for actually analyzing the state of politics.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. That's like a religious faith never being able to question, does God exist? Because you have to presume God's existence to even be in the faith to begin with. So you never really have that discussion. In political terms, you've stated it so beautifully. All right. I want you to look at a couple of Kamala Harris spots. They're new. At least one of them is brand new. And tell me if you think this stuff is effective or not, just from a media standpoint, because you are a media guy. Tony, do you have that? Yeah, here we go. Here's a new Harris.
Donald Trump's back, and he's out for control.
I would have every right to go after them.
Complete control.
I will wield that power very aggressively.
And he has a plan to get it.
Detailed plans for exactly what our movement will do.
It's called Project 2025, a 922-page blueprint to make Donald Trump the most powerful president ever, overhauling the Department of Justice, giving Trump the unchecked power to seek vengeance, eliminating the Department of Education, and defunding K-12 schools, requiring the government to monitor women's pregnancies, and severe cuts to Medicare and Social Security. Donald Trump may try to deny it, but those are Donald Trump's plans.
Well, revenge does take time, I will say that. And sometimes revenge can be justified.
He'll take control, we'll pay the price.
I'm Kamala Harris.
Yeah, so you get the idea. They're tying him to Project 2025. Thoughts on that ad and trying to tie him to 2025?
I'm not sure who that's supposed to necessarily appeal to. I mean, I think a lot of the folks that will be moved by that ad are the people like you and I that are really into this stuff, that understand what Project 2025 is, that have read some of the fine print, that are looking at this. And my guess is a lot of those folks are probably voting for her anyways. I think the people that they really need in the swing states are people that may be more concerned about the price of food to feed their kids, the price of gas, the idea of is an undocumented person going to take away a job that I think that I deserve? How are we going to be able to make ends meet in terms of the economy? And if I have an unwanted pregnancy, what are my options? Those are things that I think most Americans probably have more of a connection to than Project 2025. What do you think?
And the recriminatory nature of Trump's general footing on all things, that everything is about revenge, and he's got Project 2025. I felt like that was all rolled into that spot. But I think you're right, which is the people who care about that are already never Trumpers, or they're already voting against Trump. So that spot may not hit and land with the people that you need it to hit and land with. It may reinforce certain notions among those that already have doubts about Trump, but play the second spot. This is the very newest spot. And this addresses the border.
The choice is simple. Kamala Harris.
Go back to the beginning. I talked over the beginning. I hate to talk over a voiceover artist, being one myself. Go ahead.
On the border, the choice is simple. Kamala Harris supports increasing the number of Border Patrol agents. Donald Trump blocked a bill to increase the number of Border Patrol agents. Kamala Harris supports investing in new technology to block fentanyl from entering the country. Donald Trump blocked funding for technology to block fentanyl from entering the country. Kamala Harris supports spending more money to stop human traffickers. Donald Trump blocked money to stop human traffickers. Kamala Harris prosecuted transnational gang members and got them sentenced to prison. Trump is trying to avoid being sentenced to prison. There's two choices in this election: the one who will fix our broken immigration system, and the one who's trying to stop her.
Now that addresses directly one of the issues to which you referred, which is the border. How do you feel about that spot?
It's a good spot. I mean, but it doesn't. I think it could end with a broader theme. It's interesting. I was at an event the other night with my pal Brian Tyler Cohen, who I know you know, who has this new book, Shameless, that just came out, #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. And he was being interviewed by Jon Favreau, the host of Pod Save America, who of course was Obama's chief speechwriter back in 2008. And I asked both of them at this event about what is the message, and specifically to Jon Favreau, of how do you talk to the undecided voters in the swing states, a message that really will resonate with them, that they care about, that they can understand. And Favreau, who has done this for a living at a very high level, very successfully for a long time, said, the basic message that he thinks resonates the most is this idea of he's for him and she's for you, which is something that Bill Clinton talked about during his speech last week. This idea that don't count the lies for Donald Trump, count the eyes. That if he was a tenor, he would be singing me, 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 me. And that I think is an effective thing, because it goes to what a lot of people already necessarily think about him. Because a lot of the folks, if you talk to people that are casual Trump supporters, not the sort of religious type, but people that are like, I don't really love either one of them, but I think that my 401k is going to be better around Trump. Or I like the policies. I don't love the man. I like the policies, and I feel like the Democrats are too liberal, so I think I'm going with Trump, and I won't love it, but I'm going with Trump. The challenge is those people who may be persuadable is to make the point to them that Donald Trump's not looking out for you. Donald Trump's looking out for him. So what that ad doesn't include is the reason he was blocking all that stuff was because he didn't want to fix the problem. He wanted to stop Joe Biden from getting a political win because he thought it would be bad for him. So it's not about the problem. It's not about you. It's not about the border. He doesn't care about the border. He just cares about his own political poll numbers. That's what the last part of that ad doesn't do, right? Which is
true. And you know, in a 30-second spot, you can only do so much. Right. I like the she supports this.
It's a good ad.
He is against this. Yeah, it's a good ad from that standpoint. But of course, you're right. The whole story is even more damning. It's just that in a 30-second spot, you really can't do much.
But that's the framing, at least, that Favreau was suggesting to sort of make all your themes through that. This idea that you think that even if he's selfish, that he's on your side, when in reality, he's only on his side. And he doesn't actually really care about any of these issues. He talks about building a wall and immigration as his number one thing. And then he has a chance to fix the issue. And of course, he stops from fixing it because he doesn't actually care if it's fixed. He spends most of his life arguing that he's pro-choice. And then all of a sudden, he thinks it's politically advantageous to appoint justices who are not. They overturn Roe v. Wade, and now he realizes that that's politically damaging for him. And so he's kind of trying to walk it back. It's like, what are his core beliefs? Now, there's an argument. You could say, what are Kamala Harris's core beliefs? As she's moved on a lot of different positions and spent much of her life being cautious not to take a lot of controversial opinions. And as she now starts to do interviews, that's going to be a big challenge for her, is sort of defining what her worldview is, other than I'm not Joe Biden, I'm not Donald Trump, I'm younger, I'm fresher, I'm generic Democrat. What does she really believe in at her core gut? And how does that impact the race going forward?
In my last minute with you or so, I'd like to ask you about just that, which is the policy thing. You know, she hasn't come forth with enough specific policies. Now, I'm going to argue that the media, and I have great respect for you as a media guy, because I don't, as I've just mentioned in the intro to you, I feel as though you're kind of the new media while still working in linear media, but you're also working in the, so I see you kind of maybe as the bridge, you know, in many ways from legacy media to new media. So, but still, that may give you even better perspective on this question, which is, I'm hearing from the media she needs to sit down for an interview, and I get it. She is sitting down, okay? But again, I'd suggest that was mostly from the media, and that backbeat was picked up, you know, and then at some point it achieves a certain virality, and you reach a certain threshold, and you'll even hear it from members of the public. But the public doesn't give a damn about a sit-down interview. Most of these sit-down interviews don't really do any kind of serious number in terms of people watching anyway. They're very big inside the Beltway, but otherwise. But more to the point, now she's got to get into policy. You know, unless she lays down some specifics on economics, I don't see how Kamala Harris can get away with not saying and committing to various policy positions. Well, I look at Donald Trump. I don't see a lot of policy positions from him. I see clever name-calling. I see mudslinging. I see some things that he says, but these are broad statements about national security, et cetera. He doesn't lay down a lot of X's and O's, yet there is this demand for the Democrats. I find this typically breaks that way, but certainly in this case, Kamala Harris, to lay out X's and O's. Give me some thoughts on how successful you can be, and this is my general notion, without laying out a bunch of specifics. Do what Trump is doing. Keep it on the generic side.
Right. Well, and it's interesting, you know, sort of living in the social media space and reading a lot of comments, which is probably not a very healthy thing to do. But
well, it's not reality, but it's a temperature taking of some kind.
Democrats and progressives, what I've seen in my personal experience, tend to have a lot more purity tests when it comes to policy than Republicans, who just basically say, are you on our team? Are you not on our team? If you're on our team, great, welcome. And if you're not, you're a horrible person. Basically, is like what it comes down to, where Democrats want every single thing. And there's a lot more intra-party fighting. And part of why Kamala Harris has been able to avoid that in this very unusual situation of getting the nomination without having to go through any sort of primary fight, without having to do debates, without having to articulate any sort of worldview, basically just be handed the nomination, is she's avoided having to get into any of those fights. And so right now, everybody is behind her, because what does she stand for? I'm not Donald Trump, and I'm not Joe Biden. And I'm basically generic Democrat, which is a really good place, which is why the race has now reset to where it should be, basically, which is 50-50. Our country is divided. Biden was so underperforming all of the Democratic Senate candidates and all the rest of it because Biden was the problem, not them, not Democrats. Biden was the problem. So now Harris gets you back to basically 50-50. But to get more than that, you need a little bit more. Do I think that most people in this country are obsessed with policy stuff? No. I don't think most people understand most of the policy stuff, nor do they care. I mean, there's been a lot made of this idea of like of a vibes election, but I really do think a lot of it does come down to vibe, especially a presidential race, which is different than any other race. It's different than a Senate race or a city council race where a lot of people don't know the people, don't feel a connection to them, and don't care. The presidential candidates are in your face every day. You do have a personal connection. You do know who their family members are. You do see different pictures of them. It is somebody that is going to be a figure in your life every single day, that sort of person. And I do think that this connection of, do I connect to this person? Do they basically have my interests at heart? Could I see them every day and feel okay about it and feel good about a country being led by that person? I think is more at the core of what most people do in terms of deciding than, oh my God, that policy in Project 2025 or this white paper or whatever it was is not. I just don't think that's where most people are. I think it's a personal connection to a presidential candidate that you just don't have on any other race. What do you think?
That's why pictures are so powerful. The Dukakis picture of him with the tank and the helmet askew, it left people with a bad taste. It wasn't about a policy that Michael Dukakis had in that presidential election. Ronald Reagan's wondrous quality, which was all associated with him being an actor, I'd suggest, just his ease in front of the camera and in front of the mic. George Bush, the younger, he's the guy I would want to have a beer with at a barbecue. I mean, these are the kinds of things. I think you're right. It's just a general vibe, gut you feel.
And look, when you looked at Joe Biden, and God bless him for all that he's done for the country, and you saw him on the debate stage, nobody could listen to anything he was saying because all they could focus on was the fact of the way that he looked, right? You couldn't get past that. When you look at Kamala Harris, almost every single time you see her, she's smiling. She looks great in every picture. She looks great in every picture she's taken for the last 20 years, right? Yeah. And there is something, Chris Matthews wrote about this in Hardball 25 years ago, that usually the presidential candidate who looks like they have the sunshine on them is the one that wins, even if the policies are different. And go back through history, Bill Clinton over Bob Dole. You think about George Bush over Al Gore. George Bush seemed like he was more fun. You look Barack Obama over John McCain and over Mitt Romney, and even Donald Trump, who on TV was just more fun than Hillary Clinton, especially back then. And so I think there's this feeling. And the question with Donald Trump at this point in his life, John Favreau also on the issue is last week, I'll quote him again. I asked everybody for one word for Trump and one word for Harris. Obviously, they were biased because it was mostly Democrats, but Favreau's word for Donald Trump was stale. And the question is Donald Trump past his expiration date? Is his shtick, which was so fresh and so interesting back in 2016 for so many people, obviously not for the people watching this, but for so many people that just was curious, is it now stale? Is he like milk that's soured and you just don't want, it just smells bad and it looks kind of wrong and it feels like it's time for something new, throw that out, time to get something new. And that could ultimately be part of his undoing. Part of the reason he loved running against Joe Biden was that Joe Biden looked more stale than him. So now you've got this, right? You've got this fresh, new, smiley, fun, woman, mixed race, like all the things that looks like the future of America. Kamala Harris looks like the future. And Donald Trump looks like the past, which is why her best line that she's using is "we're not going back."
Yeah, it
feels like going back to another era where she's looking towards a new era.
But we should be reminded, and implicit in what you've said is this fact that a lot of people like being back, and a lot of people don't like the future, and they see in Kamala Harris things they don't like America being, mixed race among them. I mean, I think this is a country, sadly, where there's a strong undercurrent of racism and sexism that continues, you know.
And if you notice, and I'll end with this because I'm sure you have to move on, but if you noticed during the convention, especially on Thursday night, the big night, her night, they never mentioned any of that stuff. Never talked about her being a woman, never talked about her being black, she talked about her mom and her mom being Indian, but she never talked about her black side, never talked about the historic nature. Look at the issues that they highlighted. They weren't highlighting big progressive issues. They weren't talking about San Francisco. They were talking about veterans. They brought on the military veterans that were from Congress. They gave out American flags to every person in the room. They talked about generic concepts like shooting people is bad. They didn't talk about how they would stop it. They just talked about the concept that shooting people is bad. They kept things poll tested, highly, they had swing state governors. You didn't see Gavin Newsom on stage. You saw Roy Cooper. You saw Gretchen Whitmer. You saw popular people from the states that matter. The entire apparatus is not leaning into any of what you're talking about because they realize that scares people. So what they're doing instead is trying to make her not threatening. And they know that the one weakness for a female candidate is toughness in people's minds. So if you notice, if you watch, the one word that almost every single person said that night is Kamala Harris is tough. So that's their way of combating the female thing without actually talking about the female thing. When I went to the same convention for Hillary Clinton, there were lots of mentions of that glass ceiling. I mean, when we were in New York on election night where I was covering there was literally a glass ceiling that was supposed to break that never broke, which was so impressive.
They had all the glass ceiling stuff and celebrations preloaded. And
Harris doesn't lean into that at all because the people that are focused on that, they're already with her with that. And they know that the people in the middle that they really need are not interested in that. They're more curious about how are you going to help my life?
I love you sort of recapitulated a lot of what the DNC was about. I really like that summary because at the end of it, I even thought, wow, if you take out abortion rights here, this is so middle of the road that it could almost be a GOP convention.
Right.
It was remarkable, really strong on defense, as you suggested, and some of these other issues that poll so favorably. So you take the abortion thing out, and there are no progressive policies being articulated at that DNC. It was a clear, conscious decision, as you've suggested.
And the Republicans did the opposite. They were so confident at that point that they talked about deporting millions of undocumented people. They talked about, he picked J.D. Vance, who is, basically like a Trump 2.0 kind of candidate. They felt so good that they didn't need to lean in. And Trump, I watched the prompter for both of them because I was on the floor and he went off prompter for almost an hour.
That was one of the things I loved about that piece you did from the RNC. Alex showed the prompter and then he showed the podium. This is all happening live and Trump's there at the podium and he said, you can see that Trump is just completely off prompter now. And he was just riffing.
And so Harris stuck to this very disciplined, probably very poll tested message, didn't go off a script. And Trump didn't. And there's a lot of people on the right who view that, look at Trump, look what he can do. He doesn't need a prompter. But then there's other folks that would say, well, that's also proof of no discipline.
Sure.
Wouldn't you want to work hard on this speech and have something thought out and articulate a message? And maybe this isn't the moment to be doing improv theater. So different perspective.
Yeah. Well, Trump believes in Trump as he feels the rest of us should. So he was believing in it in that moment. We have many Southern California viewers and listeners. What's on the issue is this week?
I think this week, barring some big sporadic breaking news, is actually a special where we're trying to go away from politics. A special that I've been working on for a long time on Father Greg Boyle from Homeboy Industries, who created the largest gang intervention program in the country. This priest who for 40 years has been hiring ex-convicts and people that have been struggling with addiction, giving them jobs, giving them hope, giving them a sense of being. They've had such productive lives. He just earlier this year got the Presidential Medal of Freedom from Joe Biden as the country's top honor. I mean, he's unbelievable. And I think at this moment, it'd be nice to take a bit of a break from the divisive political stuff to be reminded what life's all about. There he is. Yep. Chilling with my homies.
Good stuff.
Let's hope that there isn't some big breaking story and we have to put this on hold, which we put on hold like 3 or 4 times already.
I see. Oh, that's why you say that, because it's been bumped before. I see.
Yeah, we've only had like a shooting of a presidential candidate and one dropping out. Stuff.
Yeah, you're right. I come to think of it. It's been an eventful couple of months. All right, good stuff, Alex. We love that you spend time with us, and your stuff we really enjoy. So thanks again. Alex Michaelson, everybody.
Good to see you.
So long, pal. Thank you.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Those just joining us, we have quite the show still ahead. Thank you for being here. I have the full complement of people on board. And by that, I mean we have Kim, who's now able to join on her in her mother's ship there, which was derailed earlier.
Kim, how are you?
And Albert, are you?
Albert, thank you.
Are you now at full strength, sir?
I'm not. I've been trying still, but
No?
it's just a browser thing for me, and I can't use everything's set up on Google Chrome for me, and I'm not working with my full tool set today.
Tony has generously moved on board.
Thanks, Tony.
But can I dismiss Tony now because he's got stuff to do? He's got videos to cut. He has other clients. Tony's the king of the side hustle, you know. And
I
what
think I
don't
can
know.
handle the rest of the show.
You can handle it, sir, Albert? Okay,
Yes.
so Tony, you are free to go. Tony, I do want to leave you with a little bit of our recorded applause.
If you need me, just give me a call to come back in if you need it.
All right. Thank you,
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah. Wow.
Thanks, Tony.
I'll be
Oh,
honest
you are
with you.
muted, by the
I
way.
don't
Look
dwell
at
on
us.
it at the beginning of the show, but it's very difficult.
He's gone.
He's gone. It's very off-putting when we have a lot of technical issues at the beginning of the show, which we did today. But somehow we got through it, and I think that might have been one of our best hours. So I don't know. I mean, sometimes it looks grim, but then it turns super great. No Contendo says strong undercurrent regarding the Kemp speaking on help me with this.
It's Stacey
Yeah,
Abrams.
I can't see this.
Apparently, Kemp spoke about Stacey Abrams. So
this is the governor of Georgia speaking about Stacey Abrams. The job that she should have is governor of Georgia. And instead, he's governor of Georgia because they stole that election from Stacey Abrams. Google it, read about it, and you can see what I'm talking about. The Democrat should be in the gubernatorial race, and the Democrat should have won that gubernatorial race and had it. Again, dude, when Democrats lose and when Democrats make mistakes, I'm all too happy to call them out. I have no problem rotisserie Democrats. But when they get stuff stolen from them, I think it's fair to call that out too. Mo Kelly, Alex, great additions to the Mark Thompson Show vibe. Thank you from Julie.
Big shout out.
Who's a big supporter of the show. Tomorrow night is our meetup. We are, for end of summer, are going to, now here's what I want you to do, Kim, for me. I want you just to, when I'm speaking, you have to mute that mic because I'm getting a little back into my, having enough problems, and I have my own cognitive acuity issues that'll probably start creeping in soon also. So I don't need to hear my voices back in my head, although
your other computer, Kim, that might be the issue.
Oh, I think it's just the mic picking it up, but maybe not.
It might be the mic, yeah.
A few technical issues always makes the show more interesting. We see how you deal with stress, Mark, says Wes.
Big shout out.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Well, we did have, we really road tested it today because my darling Albert and my sweet Kim could not get on board. I had to call Tony in to run stuff. Fortunately, we had Elex and others who didn't have any issues. So, again, thanks, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
And tomorrow night's the meetup. It will be at the same time as the interview, the sit-down with Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. And there are people who are saying that, this is the criticism you'll get across the, shall we say, right-wing mediascape. Greg Abbott, this is from A-Golf. This is a comment. Greg Abbott removed 1 million voters from the registry yesterday in Texas, 2 months before the election. Again, when it comes to voter disenfranchisement, I would say Georgia might be head of the parade. Texas is very competitive in that same arena. And it's crazy. It's un-American. But it's happening because increasingly there are just no ways, particularly for the GOP, to win elections unless they disenfranchise voters. So if they can get rid of enough of those who are going to vote against the GOP, then GOP can continue to win elections. And if they can't win elections by the vote, they'll win elections by contesting them in court, which is the plan for this year. The presidential election will be decided in court. Of that, I can almost guarantee you. Anyway, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are going to go to CNN for their first interview. It'll be 9 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow. That's 6 o'clock Pacific. This show exists in the Pacific time zone, and so our 6:30 meetup is in the middle of their sit down with CNN. That might be a concern normally, but it's not going to be a concern because we will have it on and we'll watch it with you, and it kind of might be something fun. Got a lot of people joining us. Nikki Maduro is going to join. I've put the call out, and he said, absolutely, I'll be there, to Spencer Christian, Josh Mankiewicz, Jim Avila from ABC News. So you'll have, and that Jefferson Graham's going to be through. You'll have any number of people who have said they are going to be on board, in addition to all of you.
There's never been anything like this.
To me, the special part. Albert, Kim, Tony, and everybody who has both RSVP'd and is going to be part of our meetup tomorrow night. Will it go to court if there is a landslide for Kamala? It will go to court. Okay, this would be the one thing I would say to that, Karen Cooper. If there's a landslide for Kamala, and I'd be surprised if there were a landslide for Kamala, but let's just take your hypothetical. If there were, then it would go to court, but it wouldn't be decided in court, if you see the distinction. If there really was a certifiable landslide, I think it would be much harder to mount a reasonable court case that had a chance of making a difference. The reason that you can take it to court is because the margins are so very slim. Everything now in America is decided within, 4 percentage points, 6 percentage points. And so you end up with a much more easily contested outcome, if you want to think of it that way. But if there were a runaway, then it would be much harder to make any sort of legal challenge actually stick. What I was going to say about the Kamala Harris-Tim Walz sit-down, besides the fact that it's going on in the middle of our meetup, is that what you're hearing in the right-wing media sphere is what? How come she has to do it with Tim Walz? Can't she sit down by herself? No matter how she does it, and she will sit down by herself, I'm sure. It's a reasonable question, but as you know, I don't think she should be doing it at all. Things are fine. I don't understand why you're sitting down. Why? Because a bunch of media people want you to? Okay, so you are. Now you're sitting down with Tim Walz, but that's a sliver of what you'll get no matter what. Why is she sitting down with Donna Bash? Why can't she sit down with Bret Baier? I mean, no matter what she does, she's going to get that criticism from the right-wing media sphere, and somehow we indulge it. We answer it. We dignify it. How come they didn't ask her about this? How come they didn't follow up on that? How come they didn't stress her? Isn't she the border czar? How come they didn't talk about the border more? Why didn't they start with the border? Why do we spend so much time with Tim Walz? Isn't it all about Kamala Harris? Isn't she going to be the president? So these are all things that will be challenges to Kamala Harris regardless of whether she sits down or not, and regardless of with whom she sits down, if that's the way you say it. She's sitting down with her running mate. If that's not good enough for you, then we're going to make noise about that, probably. And we're going to have noise back and forth and a discussion about it. But that's the way it's going to be. So her and Walz sit down with Dana Bash, CNN, tomorrow. Dana Bash, to be fair, she's tough. Dana Bash isn't going to give him a pass. It's not going to be like sitting down with Elon Musk for Donald Trump. Dana Bash actually can bring it. She can bring the heat. And this isn't a debate where the moderators just have to sit there like automatons reading the question and then they can't say anything. This is I would be surprised if there wasn't some back and forth. And it's likely that Kamala Harris and Walz perhaps as well will be pressed on various issues. So, all right. So, Kim's news, and then we will get into some other things. I have a lot sitting on the sidelines. I have Supreme Court news. I have J6 news. I have a law and disorder. And I have an incredible thing. Albert, you're not up to full speed, so I don't know if you can play this for me. Can you play the Trump trading cards in the next half hour or so?
I have some time to figure it out.
Okay, try to, because the new spots for the former president's new trading cards are, and it's incredible. I mean, if I told you that it was an SNL bit that they were doing, you'd totally believe it. Like, I can't believe a former president is pitching trading cards in a commercial, but he is, and we will show you that commercial in the next half hour. Smash the like button if you would.
With your iron rod.
Helps us in the YouTube universe if you smash the like button and subscribe to the show.
Can I just...
That is, what's that, Kim?
Can I just ask what you do with those Trump trading cards? I mean, are you 10? Do you stand in the schoolyard and go, I'll give you a Trump with wings for a Trump with a halo? What do you do with that?
Well, I don't know how you could say that about someone who is a great former president. You put them up alongside the other things you have that hopefully in your home are something of a shrine to a great former president. And the fact that you could say that, Kim.
Have you ever been a member of the Chinese Communist Party?
Exactly. Kim, how you could run afoul of this great man. I don't get it. I really don't. I mean, what I think you're saying, what I'm hearing you say, what's implied in what you're saying is I'm very sorry to have in any way suggested that Donald Trump wasn't the greatest president. And of course, I want some of his trading cards to have as stocking stuffers for my family this year. Isn't that what you were saying, ma'am?
That's a great joke gift. That is really good. I like it. Stocking stuffers, perfect.
All right. Well,
And you might have to go to your settings, change your input to your mic. I think you're using your laptop microphone right now.
Yeah, we're hearing you through the laptop microphone, but I still heard her insult.
I feel like I'm getting reached out to, though. This whole trading card thing is a classic millennial thing. We love to collect stuff we don't need, and we like to resell them. So I think I feel like they're trying to reach out to the younger, but not the super young folks, but just like me in the middle here. So
yeah, Albert can speak to these collectibles are big things.
I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, so I think what you'll do, Albert, is you and your generation, flawed as you all are, rotten to the core. Wait a minute.
We can't afford a house, but we can afford to buy all these things we don't need. So
we can't afford a house, but we can afford all these things we don't need.
We'll get our Donald Trump trading cards and our Pokemon cards. And
Albert, thank you. That is brilliant, sir. That is brilliant. All right. Again, thanks for being here. Kim's news, and then we'll share those trading card spots with you as we continue.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
I did want to mention a quick follow-up. It is true. In the trading cards, thank you, Wes. Thank you for the super chat and a big shout-out.
Big shout-out.
The trading cards, a handful of them, will have actual pieces of his suit that he used at the debate, Kim. So would you like to reconsider the disparaging comments you made about the trading card now that you know that there's actually going to be a piece of Donald Trump's suit in a handful of those cards?
I would not like to reconsider.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
I'm still hearing Kim through her laptop, huh, Albert?
Yes.
It's a weird thing. What do you think this is, Albert? Do you have any thoughts as to how to do this before we go to her news?
Did you check your settings, Kim?
Did you check your settings, your preferences,
audio,
anything that...
make sure that mic option is selected to your...
Yeah, the output, is it output or what is it, input or out? It's output or input? Input, I think it is. Microphone would be input. Depends on what part of the suit, says Randy.
Audio in there.
Yeah.
I think I would, in order to fix it, I have to leave and come back, but I have to do the news, so I don't have time for these shenanigans.
Yeah, but when you hear this later, you'll go, "Oh, I wish I'd left and come back."
Okay, here I go.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It really, don't you agree? Don't you agree, Albert? You agree with
yes,
me, right?
It sounds like she's underwater.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't sound good.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so this is why we invest the big money in this show, so that we can avoid these problems. We would have even more of these problems if we didn't invest the big money. But people really don't seem to be getting the Trump fever, Albert, is what I'm noticing. I'm looking and I'm seeing Marjorie say, Trump trading cards are great fire starters for my fireplace. I mean, really, that is...
Those might be expensive fire starters. I don't know how much they're going to go for, but knowing how much he charged for shoes, this might be very, very expensive.
Yeah.
Don't talk to me that way.
Yeah, exactly. I don't blame him for being a little insulted on that one. Can you imagine being the marketing exec, Rob Law says, for all of his gift products? I know he's got a lot. Here's the good thing about Donald Trump's gift product marketing head. If you're the marketing exec there are more new products coming down the assembly line all the time. You know what I mean?
You can get really creative. I feel like they could do whatever they want, try to reach the younger. I feel like I feel like I'm targeted here. So I think that's their attempt to get the younger people to vote.
Like, all the stuff behind me is available in our merch store, getmarkmerch.com. But we haven't had a new merch item in months and months and months, maybe over a year. Trump is coming out with new merch items every couple of hours. He's pitching the trading cards. He had the NFTs. He has the tennis shoes, the sneakers.
He kind of ruined red hats in general. If you see a red hat and you're walking in public, you automatically assume that that's a MAGA hat. So.
Thank you. I have a Formula One red hat that I can never wear again because people aren't close enough to see that it's Formula One. They just assume that I'm a MAGA hat.
I had to make my husband stop wearing a Disneyland hat with a little Mickey Mouse on the front because it's red. No. From 2024! No,
All
can't
right.
do. Is it better?
Kim, you sound great now.
Kim, how are you?
You'll be glad that you left and came back. All right. Kim's news, and we continue. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and this report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Remember this day? Former President Trump is being charged once again in his January 6th election interference case. This comes after the Supreme Court ruled last month Trump is entitled to immunity from criminal prosecution from official acts in office. The Department of Justice said yesterday's a new indictment reflects that ruling, and the charges against Trump have been narrowed because of it. Trump is accused of leading a conspiracy to overturn the 2020 election and disenfranchise millions of voters. The scheme led to violent attacks on the Capitol and on police at the Capitol 3 years ago. Don't forget that, man. Oops, here they are. The 69 days left until Election Day will be full of campaigning. Former President Trump and his running mate J.D. Vance are holding events in swing states this week. Trump's set to hold a town hall in Wisconsin tomorrow. He'll speak at a rally in Pennsylvania Friday. Vice President Harris and her running mate Tim Walz will kick off a bus tour in the battleground state of Georgia later this afternoon, with a rally scheduled for tomorrow in Savannah. The Supreme Court is declining to reinstate President Biden's latest attempt to cancel student debt for millions of Americans. The High Court said no to a request from the Justice Department to lift an order from an appeals court blocking the SAVE plan. The court said it expects the Court of Appeals to render its decision in a timely manner. The Department of Education paused any loan payments for borrowers enrolled in that program earlier this month. So we'll see what happens here. The FBI says a definitive motive in the assassination attempt on former President Trump has not yet been established. The agency provided an update today on the investigation of the July 13th shooting at Trump's Pennsylvania rally that left one person dead and injured two others, including Trump. Officials say the shooter searched for information on both the Republican National Convention and the Democratic National Convention, possibly suggesting that the Trump rally was a target of opportunity. The FBI added that the shooter looked at any number of events and targets before hyper-focusing on that Trump rally. As Mark mentioned earlier, Arlington National Cemetery is confirming a photography-related incident happened during a visit by former President Trump on Monday. NPR reporting there was a physical altercation between Trump staffers and a cemetery official trying to prevent filming in an area where recently killed soldiers are buried. In a statement, the cemetery said federal law prohibits political campaign or election-related activities within Army National Military National Cemeteries. Trump's campaign denied there being a physical altercation, as described by the cemetery staff. Police are releasing Telegram's founder from custody in France ahead of his potential indictment. Billionaire Pavel Durov was arrested at a Paris airport Saturday on a warrant over Telegram's illegal online behavior. Allegations include his messaging app being complicit in helping drug traffickers, fraudsters, and those spreading unsavory pictures of children. A plan to allow more outdoor drinking across California, one step away from becoming law. The state Senate approved the bill, sent it to Governor Gavin Newsom, and if he signs it, cities can start designating entertainment zones next year.
I'd be willing to bet my lunch that there's alcohol involved.
Oh, yes, there is. In the entertainment zone, the restaurants and bars can sell alcohol. The goal to help areas recover from the pandemic. The beverages have to be in an approved cup that isn't metal or glass and can include cocktails, beer, and wine.
Oh, my God.
Where are my weed smokers
Yeah,
at?
how about for the weed smokers? How about something for them? Let's just turn America into a big, drunk, stoned mess so that my kids can never go out, but all you drunkies can get your drunk on.
It's like one big party.
Why are you yelling?
America, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
Seriously, what the
Okay.
It's going to be so ugly, you see, next year anyway.
Yeah,
possibly.
you want to be drunk.
You're going to want to be hopped up on something.
I'd be willing to bet my lunch that there's alcohol involved.
Yeah, right, exactly.
The state's most notorious prison is marking a new milestone. San Quentin is being transformed into what Governor Gavin Newsom calls the nation's most innovative rehabilitation facility. Crews demolished a former warehouse that served as a furniture factory, clearing the way for construction to start on an educational center in the fall. Governor Newsom says California is building a new future brick by brick to make everyone more safe.
Wow. I always get worried when they rebrand something. It's a rehabilitation center, you know what I mean? I'm in the kind of you know, it's like a re-education center of the you know, communist China or something. But in this case, you're saying
going back to school, like, yeah, sit down, we have class. Like, oh God, I'd rather do anything but be in school right now.
Yeah, I don't know.
California is on the verge of celebrating a major moment. The historic work to remove 4 dams along the Klamath River wraps up this week, allowing water to flow freely. Crews beat their October deadline. They'll be clearing out of Siskiyou County near the Oregon border very soon. Many have never seen this river run its natural course. The project opens hundreds of miles of waterways aimed at restoring the wild salmon population. Former high-profile lawyer Tom Girardi has been convicted of 4 counts of wire fraud. A jury in downtown Los Angeles convicted the 85-year-old Girardi yesterday. While running a Ponzi scheme for 10 years, Girardi stole at least $15 million in settlement money from his injured clients. He then turned around and spent that money on private jets, golf club memberships.
Joe Box and Little Anthony.
Yeah, it was
jewelry.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean,
he was trying to support a major lifestyle. His wife liked to live large, Kim. I mean, how is he supposed to get that money if he doesn't get it out of the settlement money for clients?
Who is having that conversation?
I'm just saying, it's hard. I mean, you have all these bills. Your wife likes to fly private. You like to fly private. They like to live large, Kim. And you can't live super large just on that mega salary that he had. He had to rip off his clients.
Well,
so
in addition
that's where he ended up.
In addition to the private jets, the golf club memberships, and the jewels, he also spent it on the career of his now estranged wife, Erica Jane, who is a star of the TV show Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Girardi will be sentenced in December. Each of the 4 counts carries up to a 20-year sentence in federal prison. So we'll see how he does. I mean, he's 85. He's not serving all that time.
That's not fake. That's real.
He's not serving all that time.
Not gonna
Hey, here's the good news.
He's not going to last.
You'll just be incarcerated until you die.
There
it's not going to be the whole time.
He's 85.
You see what it is the whole time for me.
Yeah.
The incarceratee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. An NBA docuseries will debut
I love Kim's spin. It's such a mother spin. Honey, it's not so bad. You're not going to serve all the time. You'll
He's
be dead
85.
before the
What,
time
15
is expired.
years? That's less than one of the sentences.
Sure.
Right?
Exactly.
I mean, come on. There's no justice here.
The thing that
Where's
was
all the-
wild to me about the Girardi case, and then you can move on, is that he was claiming that, and his attorneys were claiming he had dementia, right? And was suffering from dementia. And yet he was helping with his own defense, and he testified at trial. So it's like he was trying to really get everything into the case that he could that might have some sort of exculpatory or otherwise would help him in his plan to try to get out, and yet none of it worked.
An NBA docuseries is debuting on Netflix this fall. It's the streaming giant announcing Starting 5 will premiere October 9th. It follows superstars LeBron James, Jason Tatum, Jimmy Butler, Anthony Edwards, and Domantas Sabonis as they make their way through the 2023-24 season. Netflix says this series will give fans an unfiltered view of life at the pinnacle of professional basketball.
Wow.
And lastly, a man who calls himself the Bubble Pirate was given a ticket for fluid littering. Sandy Snakeberg is a Navy veteran. He was putting on a bubble-making show for children at a park in La Jolla, California. As the children and their parents cheered with delight, a park ranger approached and wrote Snakeberg a ticket for violating the municipal code for littering. The ranger said that soapy liquid is bad for the grass. No bubbles allowed. The ticket mandates a court appearance. Snakeberg lives out in his bubble-making van. He's now awaiting his time in front of a judge.
I say good for the park ranger that wrote him up. Kids don't need bubbles to appreciate nature. Nature is appreciated without bubbles, Kim. And bubbles are poison, Kim. I don't mean to rain on your bubble parade.
You're going to ticket the Bubble Pirate?
Yeah, I am.
For
I'm going to
making
ticket him every
people
single
happy?
time.
Come on.
I'm ready for him to do hard time if he doesn't, especially a guy who's leading these groups out into nature. How about learning a little something about how nature works? You're not going to find bubbles and chemical reactions related to soap anywhere in nature's natural reactions.
What the hell is going on in the United States of America?
Yeah, get it straight or get out.
Good day, sir.
Exactly.
Bubbles are evil. This report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. It's
I
heaven.
love it when you're angry.
Yeah, it's a place to get a little bit of heaven in your Mark Thompson Show coffee cup. What's in the cup today, Mark Thompson?
Well, Kim, I'm glad you've asked. I went for French press today.
Did you? That's fancy.
Yes, it's something that's quite lovely. I'll have a little. Don't mind if I do. Coachella Valley coffee. Ooh, it scratches my itch.
I have the vanilla tea. I served it yesterday to some mom friends that came over. Everyone raving about the vanilla tea. Everyone.
And Courtney today, and she loves the cold press every day. I like it throughout the week, punctuating the week. We have a special pitcher we just got to make the cold press even more easily. They're am I cold? What am I? Is it cold? It's not cold press. It's
Cold brew.
Cold brew. Thank you.
Yeah.
And it's not just chilled coffee. It has these tasting notes that she loves. And so she just hit me today with the news. Today in the kitchen, in this day of crisis with technical issues of one sort or another, we are running low on the cold brew.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so we've got to launch our order. So it's very exciting. We are big fans of Coachella Valley Coffee, and you will be as well. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Do use the discount code, though, for our listeners and viewers, 10% off. Mark T is the discount code. Again, use it at checkout. and you'll get 10% off. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Mark T is the discount code.
I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Well, I'm happy that you all could be here. No bubble is the 2024 America. What the hell? That's right. No bubbles, man. You can have your bubbles at your kid's birthday party, but you don't go into the pristine wilderness and blow bubbles. You just don't do it.
They were at a park in La Jolla. Come on.
Hello? That's especially where you don't do it.
They pay me a lot of money for having attitude.
Exactly. God. They were at a park in La Jolla. Gosh.
You just don't get it, do you?
Kim, you don't get it. You don't. You don't get the sanctity of the outdoors. Oh my God, there's just it's crazy. Every time there's a birthday party or a gender naming thing, we've got to do something with an explosion with bubbles, and then the environment is destroyed or a fire is started. It's outrageous.
I love it when you're angry.
Wait. We went from bubbles to flames? I don't know how this
because
happened.
that's the slippery slope.
Oh.
That's exactly right.
Can you let him finish, sir?
Exactly. Let me finish. The slippery slope, Kim. The slippery slope starts with bubbles and it ends with baby naming parties that create huge conflagrations.
Why are you yelling?
No. I will check the. I wanted to check the chat. Oh my! Of course, Albert. Just because you had some technical issues doesn't mean you don't have to ride herd over the chat.
Albert, thank you.
Look at these donations and these people who have paid money to be in the super chat. Here is Trevor Starr in Hollywood. I didn't get a chance to sign up for the meetup in time, production meetings, etc. It's the first one I've missed, but I'll be at the next one. Trevor Starr, big shout out, big supporter of the show. Thank you for the 1010 super chat. Also, Audrey, wow, a $50 donation to the show. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. Not going to cry, but $50 is cleanly in cry territory. She says, love this group. My hobby from Huntington Beach. He is now asking, what was the, help me, Kim. What were the call letters?
Hubby was asking what
the call
was
letters,
the radio.
how did we start? KGO are the call letters.
Yes.
Yeah, I felt bad. I did not recall. Oh, my hubby from Huntington Beach. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, she did say hobby, but I'm guessing she meant hubby.
It's hubby. I think there are two sets of call letters you could tell him. One is KGO from San Francisco, which is where we all met. And also Mark is on KFI in Los Angeles. So you could throw those out.
Sure. Thank you. Kim was very good with the response there, I thought, Albert. Didn't
Kim,
you?
how are you?
Yeah, I thought she was very good. Audrey, though, most of all, thank you for your support. Thank you for making part of your day listening to or watching our show. Harry Magnan, Al Cappuccino was going to visit Coachella Valley Coffee, but he's been roasted. I get it. Because they roast coffees. Is very
Joe Box and Little Anthony.
I love it. Joe Box and Little Anthony. Rough time getting the espresso in the joint. Yeah, they're not big on letting you with the Nespresso or whatever. Is it too late to try to get into the meetup? I joined the show late, says Wes.
Oh, so we have Trevor and Wes, both big parts of this community, both wanting in. I think we should just let them in.
I'll tell you what, guys, in this case, if you can get to the PayPal and you can go put do we have it, the graphic? The graphic will remind them. Well, they know how to do it. But if you go to the PayPal and you hit the PayPal with the $50 donation, because it's a fundraiser for the show, I'll lock up 2 more spots. You do have to RSVP to me, mtsmeetup@gmail.com. Tell me that you've done it. Then I'll get you a link. Sadly, it's one of those days today that it is packed, but I will get you that link by tonight. But that's the best I can do. So if you're really serious that you want to be part of things, Wes and Trevor, regular supporters of the show, I will hold 2 spots for you. Can't wait for the meetup, says Delette. It's going to be big. You're going to love it. All your favorites and more will be there, Delette. It will not disappoint. And part of the meetup will be the sit-down chat that Kamala Harris is doing. Well, you can take the banner off. Thank you, Albert.
Albert, thank you.
The sit down that they're doing with Dana Bash, that will be something that will be a part of the meetup tonight because it will be going on at the same time that the meetup's going on. Gene Lowe says, haven't RSVP'd because I can't figure out how to do it.
Oh, no.
Well, maybe
Did she
for
already
next
send
time.
in her contribution? Do you
Yeah,
have
you
her
got to
name?
send in. You send in the contribution, and then you RSVP. It's pretty straightforward. mtsmeetup@gmail.com. You just send that email, and you go. A lot of people send screenshots of the donation, etc. But it's not until tomorrow night. So if you can get it together, we'll try to see what we can do. Kim is in the let them join camp. So yeah, but. I've already sent out all of the links. So if you haven't gotten a link, please do reach me, mtsmeetup@gmail.com, because that is the deal. Everything should be. That cake is baked. I'm just looking at where we are here. And Albert, I wonder if I have a moment to get into a couple of additional stories. Do I?
You have a moment? I do have that commercial, too, that the new ad.
So the former president is doing what a lot of former presidents have done since the new media age. He is hawking everything that he possibly can to sell you, because that really is what the presidency is about. It's about raising the level of your profile to the point that you can sell stuff. And so he's selling this stuff online. This is a real ad, not a parody. Donald Trump. Let's try it again with the audio this time.
There's no audio on this?
No.
I didn't hear it.
I sent Tony another one that is an option for you, Albert. Do you think you can find it?
I think this is just a technical thing that I need to fix.
All right. I actually was going to get some. I thought I even did have some. You know, that think music that sometimes they'll play in game shows, or back in the old time 60s shows, they had these think music. I have it somewhere. I don't think maybe it's not loaded in, but I'm working on it. We'll have it for next time. We still don't have the audio for Donald Trump, and the audio in this case is probably the best part. If you want to YouTube search it, you can YouTube search it. Otherwise, I will share this story with you while Albert works on this. The Swifties, as you know, there is a huge threatened lawsuit that the Taylor Swift people are making noises about against Donald Trump. The lawsuit is associated with Trump's misrepresentation of the fact that Taylor Swift is supporting him in his effort to become president. He did it with AI. He did it through his people, but he certainly knew about it. Anyway, there's that going on. That's the court case that's being threatened. And he's saying, I didn't know anything about it. I had nothing to do with this. But the Swifties, 34,000 strong, joined for the Kamala Zoom call. It was a kickoff call, fundraiser, not unlike our meetup, come to think of it. Only they raised $122,000 for the Harris-Walz presidential campaign. It also featured Carole King, Senator Elizabeth Warren, and a couple of Congress people as well. You come together hand in hand, friendship bracelets on your wrists, and you overcome anything life throws at you, Elizabeth Warren said. It's about standing up for what is right against bullies like Donald Trump. That is Elizabeth Warren.
No Taylor Swift, though, right?
No Taylor Swift.
Ah.
They did the whole thing as Swifties without their leader. It was really an effort to essentially form that coalition among those who are Harris supporters and who wanted to be part of things. So that was the latest. Now, here is the Trump spot, and we still don't have audio. This is the elusive spot that will probably run tomorrow. You can also call Tony. He'll run it for you.
I think if Taylor Swift does come out of, maybe she's the October surprise, or I don't know what will be, but when she steps forward and, speaks about why she's voting for whoever she's voting for, I think that will make a big difference. A lot of people, there's a lot of Swifties in the world, and they seem to have to carry a very large presence.
Well, there's so many Swifties that this is true as well, what Walter's saying, which is some Swifties are Trump supporters. Yeah, you can't have so much in the way of support and not have some people in there who represent the entire spectrum of political associations. So in a way, it just makes sense. But what is this? From Jason. Mark Thompson, wisdom of the day. If you want to YouTube search it, you can. YouTube search it. Yeah, I always recommend a YouTube search, kind of, anyway.
Didn't you tell me that the YouTube search function is one of the most most widely, used search engines ever?
Yeah, I always try to talk to, because Kim is very helpful in getting our stuff going independent of the news stuff. She does a lot of that, and I always make the point that the Google search is the second most popular way to search on the internet. The first most popular is Google, okay? And then after Googling it, you've got YouTube. That is, those are the top two. So that's why certain things are very important if you're trying to launch a show and get traction with people who are searching things. You need descriptive words, and you need references and explanations that maximize that fact. That's
so
a
interesting,
pro tip to you young kids beginning your YouTube channels.
I thought it would have been, Google, then DuckDuckGo, or Yahoo, or any of these others, not Google, then YouTube. That's crazy.
Yeah, it really, I agree. I was surprised as well. Luis says, telling you he will have a money-making reality show from the Clink.
Prisoner President.
Donald Trump is going to have a money-making reality show, according to Luis. Man.
Big shout out.
Prisoner President this fall on Fox. He will monetize anything and everything. Yeah. Prisoner President, to me, sounds like could be sitcomish. I mean, I see that in the Arrested Development space. You know what I mean? Where, he's prisoner president. Anything could happen. No executive order strong enough to get him out of the joint. Critics are taking swipes at Donald Trump because he sat down in another one of his interviews. You see, this is what he gets credit for. He sat down in an interview with Dr. Phil.
Yay! Right.
Dr. Phil,
That's a serious interview right there.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a man with anger. This is a man that has resentment towards you.
Well, Dr. Phil is the great suck-up to Donald Trump. And while he was on with Dr. Phil, the former president, Trump, attacked California for its extensive vote-by-mail program. He falsely claimed it leads to voter fraud and insisted without evidence that he'd win the state if not for that supposed fraud. This is something that Elex made mention of. The fact that Trump said, and this is a quote, "I guarantee you if Jesus came down and was the vote counter, I would win California." In other words, if we had an honest vote counter, a really honest vote counter, I do great with Hispanics. Great. I mean, I had a level that no Republicans ever done. But if we had an honest vote counter, I would win California. Wow. We could just get Jesus to come back and count votes. That would be an odd conversation.
In California, no less. Right. I'm sure. Yeah.
I mean, welcome back. Gosh, we're glad you're here to save humanity. Before you do, can you just count the votes?
I've never seen anything like it.
It's a special task that we put aside and left for you. Yeah. Ted Lieu said, "I'm just an ordinary Catholic, but I'm thinking that Jesus probably wouldn't come down for a man found liable by a jury for sexual assault." Ooh, that burn is going to leave a mark. And since Jesus invented the laws of the universe, including math, this is Ted Lieu speaking, he would certify that Trump lost California and Georgia, Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Miami, and Pennsylvania.
What?
Wow. Pretty crazy. Here's what it sounded like when he was Trump was speaking about the count. It's kind of wild to hear him saying this to Dr. Phil. I mean, who is a real doctor and a real Phil.
I look at California. I gave a speech. I had a crowd so big. I said, "There's no way I could lose California," but automatically they mark it down if you're a Republican as a loss. That you lose by 5 million votes. I said, 5 million votes. I guarantee. If Jesus came down and was the vote counter, I would win California, okay? In other words, if we had an honest vote counter, a really honest vote counter, I do great with the Hispanics, great. I mean, at a level that no Republican's ever done. But if we had an honest vote counter, I would win California.
You think so?
Oh, I think so. I do. I see it. I go around California. They have Trump signs all over the place. It's a very dishonest. Everything is mail-in. They send out 38 million ballots. I think it is around 36, 38 million ballots. They send them.
So the thing that this is absurd, and there's kind of a funny absurdity to it, the way there is a lot of funny absurdity associated with Donald Trump. But there's also a serious aspect to this. It's got nothing to do with Jesus or the claims he was making and whatever.
My beautiful Christians, I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian. Yeah. I love you.
It's got nothing to do with that. It has to do with actually winning. And here is the problem that the GOP has. GOP insiders will tell you this. Trump, on the one hand, is looking at the mail-in vote as a fix for the Democrats. It's a fix. The fix is in with their mail-in vote. But increasingly, that's the way people vote. And so what you end up with is this very difficult split that the GOP is trying to bridge. On the one hand, you've got the presidential candidate, Donald Trump, essentially saying the mail-in is a fraud. Don't be part of the mail-in. That discourages mail-in voters. Yet many people, increasingly, as I say, want to vote in a mail-in way. GOP as well as Democrats. So you may think in your old school way that targets Democrats, but increasingly it targets everybody. And also you're behind, of course, a few steps on the way people are voting. And so insiders will tell you we actually want GOP voters to get out and mail in their ballots. We want them to participate. We want their vote. And Trump, meantime, is discouraging that. So there's a real problem in that party, substantively, beyond the craziness about I've seen so many yard signs in my driving around California. There's no way I could possibly lose an election there. There are just clearly too many people to support me, Donald Trump. There's a real problem that they have with Donald Trump discouraging the mail-in vote. So that's something that's for real. Also great to see Dr. Phil again.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil McGraw. What a success story that was. So Oprah really birthed Dr. Phil and the other guy, Dr. Oz.
Dr. Oz, yeah.
Both those guys came in like Trojan horses, seemed to be helping people, all seemed good. Then it was revealed, really, who these guys are. And so, Dr. Phil drops, please. Yeah. Well, the Dr. Phil drops, do I have them, Albert? I have...
What is Dr. Phil? There's a reason this place is fun. Is that Dr. Phil?
No. That's the deputy. That's the deputy.
That's Grady Judd. Yeah.
Oh, that's Grady.
This is a man with anger. This is a man that has resentment towards you.
That is Dr.
That's pretty
Phil.
good. Yeah.
And
he loves you when he's not drinking.
That was my favorite on KGO. I love that on KGO. Guys just say, I love this, I love that. And then
he loves you when he's not drinking.
Yeah, I always like that, Dr. Phil. And I also liked, because we are the show of apologies. If you're new here, we celebrate apologies. We offer you many different kinds of apologies.
Would you like to apologize for what you've done?
You know, I stand corrected.
I stand corrected.
My words hurt so many people, and I'm sorry.
I misspoke. My words upset so many people.
The Asian community, we apologize.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
The Tubin, it was wrong, it was stupid. So we also like anything that's sort of apology adjacent. And Dr. Phil had his own drop that was apology and is apology adjacent.
I don't think you should apologize for how you feel.
So I liked that one, Albert. I used to play that a lot on cable.
I don't think you should apologize for how you feel.
Yeah. So anyway, those are a few of the, and as you know, we love our drops. Used to play a lot more of them on the radio.
Stay at home and get baked.
Yeah, but now I kind of backed off on them on this. Mark T., you're behind. Trump is not discouraging mail-in anymore. He is courting mail-in voters. I see. Oh, really? Well, maybe I am behind, Teacher Lori. I don't know. I had thought that actually he was identifying, and certainly in some of his remarks, I thought even to Dr. Phil, he was indicating that he thought the mail-in vote was not legitimate, not legitimately counted, and not legitimate. Mail-in votes are thrown out. Mail-in votes aren't counted legitimately. But according to Teacher Lori, Trump is trying to get people to use the mail-in system. So, I see. Hey, Mo says, hey, Mark Thompson, what I think is been failed to be pointed out is that Dr. Phil went back to Texas and started his own private network. Oh, I didn't know that. That's pretty good.
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
I see. Well, he's double talking, Mark. I see, on the issue of mail-in vote. Yeah. Poor Tubin. One tiny mistake and a lifetime of abuse, says Delwood. Yeah, it's true. I mean...
it was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
It was stupid, and it was wrong. But as I've said before, I mean... I don't know, but better person thing, but you had to, you know, the guy ran the gauntlet of apology and then he couldn't get out of it because, you know, it's very hard to come back from that. So Trump is all over the map on mail-in, Mark. So, yeah, thank you, John. Feel a little bad when Teacher Lori says that I'm behind in some way. I like to, I pride myself on being current.
You pride yourself on being in the front of the class, head of the class.
I just, Teacher Lori, she is the teacher.
Teacher Lori is thinking you're sitting in the back, not paying attention.
I mean, now he's for it.
You're not the A student we thought you were. What's happening?
Yeah, my God, imagine how I feel. It cuts me right to the quick. Now, I did want to note one thing on this day that we typically have Belinda here for It's the Planet Stupid. Mm-hmm. And it was a story that I saw, let me see if I can just get it organized, from the UN chief. And, you know, the UN chief has been pretty good on sounding the clarion call for the planet being in bad shape. But as is the case here in this country and beyond, pretty much all of his pleas have been ignored. And he's suggesting that seas are rising at an accelerating rate, especially in the vulnerable Pacific Island nations. And he has fired another flare, has the UN chief. Antonio Guterres has made this announcement along with the World Meteorological Organization and issued reports on worsening sea level rise. Turbocharged is that sea level rise by a warming Earth and melting ice sheets. The southwestern Pacific is not only hurt by the rising ocean, but other climate change effects are affecting ocean acidification, marine heat waves, etc. So Guterres toured Samoa and Tonga this week and made this plea from the capital of Tonga at a meeting of the Pacific Islands Forum. And he says this is a crazy situation. Rising seas are a crisis entirely of humanity's making, a crisis that will soon be almost unimaginable in scale. No lifeboat to take us back to safety, is what he says. A worldwide catastrophe is putting this Pacific paradise in peril. The ocean is overflowing. Again, this is a report that Guterres' office commissioned. It found that sea level, which of course Tonga is experiencing in huge ways, has risen 8.3 inches between 1990 and 2020. That's twice the global average of 3.9 inches. There's been a foot of rising seas as well in all of these other areas of the southwestern Pacific. Samoa, Apia, Fiji. The Pacific Islands nations are in grave danger, Gutierrez says. About 90% of the region's people live within 3 miles of the rising oceans. It's a crisis, but sadly, it will probably be pretty much ignored. But it's real. It's happening. So on this day where we typically take stock of the planet, I thought I'd share that one announcement from the UN and from a guy who, as UN chief, has made the announcement before. Antonio Guterres has, he's beating the drum, but humanity seems to ignore it. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
Albert, it is with the greatest sadness that I need to wrap up. The reefs are in peril because the higher temperatures do kill the coral. You saw that program, Karen, who gave us this this comment. The program is actually removing the coral, taking it into various laboratory settings, trying to grow coral essentially there, and then transplant it back into the ocean. It's pretty exciting. Sadly, it has to be done on such an immense scale. And with ocean acidification and with temperatures rising, you end up in a situation where even if the coral, is brought back to life or you can grow new coral, when you put it back into that situation which killed it in the first place, it's just going to die again. So it's a pretty tough spot that we find ourselves in. So President Gore warned us back in the 80s. Thank you, Phineas. I like the President Gore part. All right. What do we do, Albert? You are our North Star, sir.
I think that's it. We made it. I feel like I've been limping in there. I've been trying to troubleshoot everything going on, and it's not working. So I don't know.
So the spot that is Trump hawking the cards will have to wait until tomorrow. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, and just in general for my just running the show, I need to figure some stuff out before tomorrow.
All right, Albert is going to figure some stuff out, which is always interesting. I would always point you to maybe turning the whole house off for 15 seconds and then turning it back on again. Might that work? I mean, I'd find a huge reboot. Maybe the whole neighborhood has to be turned off for a few minutes. Try it. I mean, pitch it.
Maybe I could just go back to Barcelona and we'll figure this out.
Yeah, things are not as facile. Nothing is easy, Albert, thank you. And Kim,
Albert, thank you.
Thank you.
Kim, how are you?
I'm looking forward to the after party, which starts right away on the After Party Live channel. And I should mention this.
I'm Shadow Stevens for The Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Tomorrow, David Katz to review the new indictment and...
Bye-bye.
The meetup tomorrow. Till tomorrow, everyone. Bye-bye.